Hello, 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 hello. You know what? Fuck this. We not doing no intros. Fuck all that, cause I'm annoyed. I'm fucking annoyed. Alright? I'm annoyed that I even have to come online and have this dumbass conversation with you fucks. I'm mad. I'm annoyed. I shouldn't have to have conversations about superhero fatigue and is comic book movies over and whatnot. This whole video should be me talking about Resident Evil 4 Remake and how amazing it is, and how Capcom once again shows that they are the best video game company in the world. You know, these guys have taken one of their classics and made it another classic, another hit. Like, these guys are fucking demons. Cat gods are back, man, and Street Fighter 6 is gonna be a fucking amazing. All right. Like, I'd rather talk about that than this dumb shit, because I think people are so hanged up on the internet about when is the fall of the comic book movies, when every year a comic book movie comes out and constantly debunks that shit, like constantly says that argument is stupid. So why is it being brought up now? Well, it's because two of the newest comic book movies that came out this year, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and Quantumania, both failed at the box office. Both was flops, and people was like, "Oh my god, the end of days are coming," and I'm just like, "Motherfuckers." Comic book movies, and I'm gonna just say something very controversial. Comic book movies are not bad. Comic book movies are not failing. Comic book movie fatigue is a myth, right? You know what the problem is? The problem is with comic book movies right now, and at least when it comes on to these two movies, it's pretty fucking simple. People are tired of mediocre. People don't want mediocre. Why would I spend $30 fucking dollars on a movie ticket and snacks to go see a generic comic book or a generic movie in general when I can watch it on a streaming website for free, or grab one of my friends' passwords and watch it for free, or pay the $9 or $10 a month to watch it? Why would I need to spend that much money? And especially since a lot of movies are now coming out 45-day windows and whatnot, so you can catch the movie like a month later. Why the fuck would anybody want to spend money on movies that are mediocre? And don't get me wrong, I think Shazam Fury of the Gods is not a bad movie. I think it's fine. I think it's decent. I think it's a movie you can take your kids to and have a good time. But the reason it flopped, why it's a commercial and critical flop, and why fans are not going to see it, is pretty fucking simple. It's multiple reasons. Number one, it's the side effect of Black Adam. Black Adam was this movie that was a generic Marvel movie. As I've stated multiple times, it was a generic Marvel movie, and we were fucking promised, if you showed up and watched Black Adam, despite all the nonsense, you would have gotten to see Henry Cavill's Superman. And now DC has told the fan base, well, fuck you, that was all a lie, now we're rebooting the shit. And it's like, what the fuck? And then you have Zachary Levi, and this is the second problem. You have Zachary Levi coming up on stage saying, well, we wanted to do this with our movie, we wanted to do that, we wanted to have The Rock in our movie and have him cameo, and we wanted the Justice Society of America to come in and make a cameo, but we couldn't do that because Rock vetoed it. Which makes no fucking sense, how Rock, a person who doesn't own the characters at all, doesn't own DC, can veto a decision like that. That's fucking bullshit, and that tells you how dumb, stupid Warner Brothers is. So there's no leadership, there's nothing over at that movie. And then, you know, you look at something like Fear of the Gods, and you watch the movie, and the movie's fine, but you can clearly tell the people who made it, I feel like the charm of the first movie is not there. You know, what made the charm of the first movie, it almost reminded me of, I don't know if anybody watched this movie called Chronicles, which is basically kids getting powers and fucking around. That's what basically Shazam was, but just a funner time. And the charm of that is kind of lost a little bit, but more importantly, the story is just mediocre. It felt like while I was watching the movie, they were just like, well, this shit's getting rebooted anyway, so let's just throw this out. And Shazam has never been this box office smash hit. So I don't know why people are shocked on Shazam not doing well. Even when I went to the theater, and I went to the Draft House Theater in Manhattan, in New York. Shout outs to that theater. That theater was amazing. Like, you can order your own food, and a waiter will come out and deliver your food while you're watching the movie. That was fucking dope. I loved every minute of it. It almost reminded me of iPick. If anybody's ever been to iPick in New York, that movie theater is also the same way. Only thing is more romantic, and you can recline your seat. It's more of like a take your partner type of date type of thing. But if you want more of a budget, if you're going on a budget, that's the closest thing. The Draft House is the closest thing. But that's beside the point. That theater was empty as fuck. And so people felt burned by Black Adam. And now you're telling them, come watch Shazam, when Shazam is going to get rebooted. None of this shit matters. You literally hired James Gunn to reboot a fucking universe. So overall, you have already burnt your fan base, and also the shit's going to get rebooted anyway. And as for Ant-Man, once again, Ant-Man has never been this household selling movie. So I don't know. None of the Ant-Man movies have been financially successful. In fact, I remember Rock one time for Hobbs and Shaw literally said, like, hey, like, our movie did as much on the same level as the Ant-Man trilogy. I'm like, that's nothing to celebrate, because Ant-Man is the weakest fucking Marvel film. So again, it was just always Ant-Man was doomed to fail, you know, and it didn't help. And this is another problem, that Phase 4 has been a stellar fucking phase. Like, Phase 4 is inconsistent. You know, one of the things I loved about Marvel, and I always tell people this, the thing that makes Marvel so great is that it is consistent. You know what you're getting from a Marvel movie. You know what to expect from a Marvel movie. Now you go into most of these fucking Marvel movies, you don't know what the fuck you're gonna get, alright? You don't have no idea. And it's inconsistent. One minute you'll get a Spider-Man No Way Home, then you'll get Eternals, then you'll get Multiverse of Madness, then you'll get something like a Shang-Chi or something just not that great. Although I love Shang-Chi, but I'm just using, like, oh, Black Widow. Like, you'll get a Black Widow. Like, you see, you're just getting things that are just inconsistent over by Marvel. And then it doesn't help that it feels like Quantumania felt like, oh, a Phase 4 Marvel movie that had, like, they just ported into Phase 5. Like, some of literally the bad CG, some of the bad dialogue, some of the corniest jokes from Phase 4 are in this movie. So it's kind of like, ugh. Fans don't want to see that shit. Fans want to see something cool and exciting. Alright? So all this nonsense, so I can understand why, like, no one went to go see Quantumania, because it wasn't that great of a movie. It's never been. And again, it doesn't help that Marvel constantly are putting out content and the quality level is literally down. It's quality, it is less, it's quantity over quality when it should be quality over quantity. And that's what Marvel used to excel at, and now they just kind of like doing whatever the fuck they want. And so this whole thing is not surprising on why people did not go see these movies. You know, our fan base is kind of, both fan base, I would say DC is the worst, But Marvel fans we're also struggling right now. We're kind of in limbo, you know. But that doesn't change the fact that we had good shit that come out. That doesn't change the fact that amazing things have come out. And I think audience are kind of realizing, like, why the fuck would I spend $30 on a movie when I can watch all these mediocre movies on streaming? Streaming has blown up significantly thanks to the pandemic. And so now people are like, well, we could just wait out the 45-day window and I'll go watch all the comic book movies that are mediocre in one sitting. You know, like why are we wasting our time? But you know what movie people are gonna spend that $30 on? John Wick Chapter 4, right? Like that movie, oh my goodness, is fucking fantastic. All right, that movie is the definition of a fucking thrill ride. That is, I hadn't had that much fun in a movie theater since Mad Max Fury Road. Like, generally, it was a spectacle. It was a fucking insane, adrenaline pumping, testosterone raising movie. That movie makes you feel like a man after fucking watching that movie. It makes you want to get a fucking beer and a fucking big ass fucking turkey leg and just rip that shit apart, throw your cup on the floor like you going to Valhalla. That's how amazing that movie is. It is that amazing. All right. And even before then, like look at something like Avatar, Way of the Water. Like that movie was a theater going experience. If you did not see that shit in IMAX in the theater, you missed out. It was a beautiful spectacle. It was so amazing. It felt like you was in a beautiful theme park and it had such a fascinating story. It was way more better than the first movie. But then people was like, well, why the fuck is people talking about its plot? And it's like, the plot is so good. And it's such a vast improvement, but it's something you had to have been there. All right. You can't explain it by just talking about it. You had to have been there to see how beautiful it is. That was a movie going experience. And then even to take it into comic books, if you really want to go into comic books, a movie that people pulled up to was the Batman. Batman was very comic booky, but laced with realism, and it found the perfect balance, even more so than I would think Christopher Nolan's take of Batman. Like a perfect balance. It's stylized, but it's got these corny moments where Batman's just walking slowly down. It was so stylized, and that's what we're not getting with comic book movies, and these recent comic movies that came out, you know, and people want that. And I think what also kind of proves this argument that franchise fatigue is nonsense is, again, look at movies like the fucking Batman. That made 700 million plus at the box office. That's pretty good for a reboot of a franchise. That's pretty good. You know, to me, 700 and up is a good is good enough for your franchise to continue. You know, you look at something like Wakanda Forever. I loved that movie, and that movie made $800 million. Not $1 billion like the original movie, but that makes sense due to circumstance, you know. But the simple fact that that movie was different in the sense that it was just the secondary characters holding their own, and the whole entire movie was impressive. There's a reason why so many people are bitching and whining and complaining, why didn't Angela Bassett win a fucking Oscar? Angela Bassett should have won that, not Jamie Lee Curtis. Even though I knew in my heart, as much as I want Angela Bassett to win that Oscar, I knew she wasn't going to win that Oscar, because let's fucking face it, Hollywood don't respect comic book movies. I've said this millions of times. Hollywood don't respect comic book movies, and the closest comic book movie they'll ever respect is something like a Joker or a Batman that is grounded in realism. But anything other than these live action, like over the top movies with CG and shit, they don't give a fuck. They don't like it. The closest thing they'll do is throw us a bone and say, here's best costume design, because that's all we'll ever win. But that's beside the point. I don't want to get into that. But that's another movie that was good, and people pulled up to watch that movie. Obviously, Spider-Man No Way Home. That movie made $1 billion. All right, that was the pandemic movie. Like that movie was the reason I came out in the theater. That was my first movie I watched after the pandemic, and it was fucking amazing. Like, and it made $1 billion. And that movie, regardless of how I feel or whatnot, people watched it because, you know, it was the first time we was getting to see these 3 Spider-Mans on screen together. So it was nostalgia. I personally loved it for the story more than the nostalgia, but that's aside the point. You know, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, almost made it to the $1 billion club, and a lot of that assistance was from the Wanda crew, the WandaVision crew, a really good Disney Plus show. So again, like, people are pulling up to these shows, and these are good movies. All these movies I just mentioned are good movies, regardless of how you may feel about some of them, or you think some are mediocre. Regardless, people showed up and people wanted to see them, and that lets studios know we should continue with this. That being fucking said, like, none of these movies, Shazam Fury of the Gods and fucking Ant-Man 3 should be surprising to anybody. So this whole nonsense about superhero fatigue is bullshit. You know, those 2 movies are a horrible choice, or horrible examples. You know what would be perfect example of if franchise fatigue or superhero fatigue is really true, is if we get Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is a household name to Disney and Marvel. It's always done well in theaters. If it gets commercial saying that it's a really great movie, but no one showed up to watch it, then that's when you know, oh shit, comic book fatigue is real. That's when you would know comic book fatigue is a real thing. And then another one, I would say, despite me not really giving a fuck about this movie, The Flash. I think that's another movie where it's like, if that movie comes out and flops and it gets critical reviews, even with having 2 Batmans and Michael Keaton's Batman, a character, nostalgia at its finest, is being representative and no one watched it, then I would agree with you guys. This argument of, you know, superhero fatigue is real. But other than that, and respectively, miss me with all that nonsense. All right, with franchise fatigue, it don't exist. It doesn't exist. We just need to do Marvel, and also DC needs to do a better job at making better movies. That's simply it. So I think my final words would be this: comic book movies ain't going nowhere. People still enjoy comic book movies. This whole franchise fatigue nonsense is a bunch of fucking baloney. But what people are tired of is mediocre movies. And no one is going to sit down and watch a mediocre comic book movie no more. If they're not on the level of The Batman, if they're not on the level of John Wick Chapter 4, if they're not on the level of Top Gun Maverick or Way of the Water, any of those movies I just mentioned, people is going to just say, fuck it, we'll wait until it's on streaming. And even going even further, eventually if they keep putting out mediocre shit like Shazam 2 and Ant-Man 3, then we have a conversation of comic book movies are dead. But as of right now, they're still striving, We just need to do quality control. That's the problem. There's no quality control. With all that being said, this is your boy, Mr. Degenerate. If you like the video, please comment, rate, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And let me know, what do you think? Am I going crazy? Is conflict fatigue really a thing? Or is people really just tired of mediocre shit and just want to see cool and exciting things? Let me know. And as always, stay tuned. More videos are coming soon. It's your boy, Mr. Degenerate, signing off. Have a good one.